All right. I think that makes us live, everybody. Shout out if you can hear me, where you're from in the chat. Oh, I guess I should turn off my music too, huh? Tim mentioned Little White Wine in the Sun, some festive music. All right. It's good to see you all, to see you in the chat. Welcome. Merry Festivus, everyone. Happy winter solstice. I hope you've brought your libations. I will bring the conversation. Today I went with the mulled wine because that seemed really appropriate for the kind of day that we're having here in Madison, Wisconsin. So, lovely, delicious. It's actually really good. Merry Festivus, happy winter solstice, happy day of the Grand Conjunction. I'm super bummed I didn't get to see it, but for those of you who don't know, I saw some people were talking about it in the chat. Jupiter and Saturn are getting a little intimate in the night sky for the first time in quite a while. They get together, I think it's like every 20 years or so, but never or rarely this close. From what I understand, they are 6 arc minutes apart. Oh boy. And the last time they were that close, I think, was in 1623, but apparently it wasn't visible. I guess it was too close to the sun, or the sun was up for too long, something like that. So the last time that people actually saw it as close as it was together tonight was like 800 years ago in 1226. I think they were 2 arc minutes apart then. So like I said, I didn't get to see it. I'm super bummed. It's cloudy and rainy here. I did check out a couple of the live streams, so that was pleasant. That was nice. Ooh, Lagavulin 16 mark. Very nice. Yeah, if you haven't heard that Tim Minchin song, Tim Minchin's just fantastic. But that's an excellent one. Katie D, I'm going to ask you to resubmit that question a little bit later on when I get to them, because I'm going to forget it and I don't have anybody here to type and help me. But I'll call for some questions. I pulled some questions. If you ask them on Twitter, if you ask them on Facebook or on Instagram, I'm Andrew L. Seidel at all those spots. You can follow me. But I pulled a few of the questions that people asked there, so I'll read those too. But yeah, I didn't get to see the Great Conjunction, which was a bummer. You know, the solstice is the real reason for the season. So we're all about astronomy this time of year. It's not about Jesus, right? Despite what you've heard, it is about finding light in the darkest time. It's about life when death is all around. That was the human celebration for millennia. A celebration of our continued existence in a hard, unfeeling universe. And that seems even more appropriate today, right? A celebration of life when death is all around, about finding light in the darkest time. So let's all raise a glass. Cheers. Here's to the light. Now, I promised, I'm losing track of the chat here, sorry. I was called Dumbledore in the chat, and that is something that I will definitely take. That is quite the compliment. Also, love socks, and that's what I ask for this time of year as gifts. That, and if anybody wants to buy me the Demolishing Trump's Casino in Atlantic City, I'm sure that there's only a couple million. I'd love to have that too. But I promised that this Libations and Conversation was going to be the War on Christmas edition, and 'tis the season for that myth, right? There is no war on Christmas. This was made up by a right-wing propagandist. I mean, we know this. We had the book. It was seized upon by Bill O'Reilly when he was at Fox News, back when he had a job. This was a talking point that he used to fearmonger and divide in the name of fair and balanced television. So, I mean, Christmas, look, right, as we know it, this is pagan. Wreaths and mistletoe, I mean, that's pagan. Trees, that's pagan. Hell, the Bible says in Jeremiah 10 that hanging out with a tree in your house like this is the way of the heathen. Okay, that's why I've got one. And especially if you've got it decked in gold. Ooh, boy. So in Jeremiah 10, this is an abbreviated version. Go look it up for yourself. Thus saith the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, For the customs of the people are vain. For one cutteth a tree out of the forest, they deck it with silver and gold. Now, if you go read those in context, and I know some people might want to argue this in the chat, go for it. You say, well, you're not actually worshiping the tree as an idol when you stick it in your living room, so it doesn't really count. A Christmas tree doesn't really violate Jeremiah 10. First, I don't care, because the Bible is not a rule book for living. That's something that Christians screaming about the war on Christmas while having a heathen custom set up in their living room have to square with their book and with their God. Second, watering a tree, trimming it, keeping it alive, which I'm actually struggling with ours, making it look pretty with lights and tinsel and silver and gold ornaments and Marvel and, yes, Harry Potter ornaments in my case, putting presents underneath it, right? All of these really seem to mirror the propitiation that some and older religions gave to idols as their due. So, it may not be the intent of some Christians in their Christmas tree, but look, they have a fun time explaining that to their God. So yeah, this season is all about pagan and heathen celebrations. It's one of the reasons I love it so much. It's fantastic. The Romans celebrated Saturnalia this time of year. Saturn, which we already talked about, the Great Conjunction. Saturn, the god, controlled quite a bit, including agriculture. So again, with the life and the death and the natural world. And it actually sounds like kind of a hell of a celebration. Besides the gambling and the gift giving, something that we borrowed. The modern gift giving, I actually don't think took hold again until, I want to say Queen Victoria and Albert, but don't quote me on that. I haven't looked at that history in a while. But you got the gambling and the gift giving and the general debauchery that we love to pin on the Romans. They were also big on role reversals during this festival, role reversals. So servants would be the masters and masters would be the servants, And I wanted to share this with you guys. I'm a huge nerd. You probably know that about me already. But this is something that I asked for one year for our gift-giving Saturnalia pagan heathen celebrations. Chambers Dictionary of Etymology. I love etymology. And I was just curious today. I was like, I don't actually know where pagan comes from. And so the meaning, in terms of meaning a heathen, probably came about in about 1400, 1425. Those were the first printings. It's borrowed from the late Latin paganus, pagan, meaning villager or rustic or civilian, from possibly Pagus, which was a rural district, one with limited markers. But using it in terms of heathen does come from that late Latin, basically meaning like villager, since ancient idol worship lingered on in rural areas after Christianity had generally been accepted in the towns and the cities of the Roman Empire. Alternatively, it may derive from the Latin meaning for civilian. Definitely kind of ties in there. Also, by the way, if you're ever writing something and you got writer's block and you're stuck, etymology is like a really great way to get yourself unstuck. Just pick out one of the words, what you're supposed to be writing about, thinking about, and go dive into one of those etymology rabbit holes. They are a great way to break writer's block. So gonna take some questions in just a second here. Looks like you guys have some, which is fantastic. But I want to say something that I said on Matt Dillahunty's show last week, because I really think it is worth repeating. So Monday, December 14th, 2020, it was this remarkable symbolic day for me. It felt like a turning point. The Electoral College was certifying the election, the bye-bye Trump, while frontline workers were getting a life-saving vaccine. So both marked the beginning of the end for a lethal disease. So the Electoral College is voting to save American democracy and evict this orange malignancy from our White House, while the vaccine is it's a triumph of human ingenuity and science and modern medicine and just humanity over this deadly virus that has killed more than 300,000 Americans, which is unbelievable, and 1.7 million people, more than that worldwide. So it's this double repudiation. Monday was this symbolic double repudiation of Trump and Trumpism and Christian nationalism and bigotry that was really heartening. I mean, you've got this new brilliant technology developed by a Turkish immigrant and the daughter of a Turkish immigrant, both doctors in Germany, and saving, now millions of lives. Just fantastic. So 30 days until the orange malignancy is excised from our White House. I think I got that right. I should check the math beforehand. But don't worry, everybody. Don't worry. He decided to get serious about the job today, finally. As another 2,000 or 3,000 Americans died today, Trump finally signed an important executive order. I kid you not. This is not a joke. Quote, promoting beautiful federal civic architecture. Promoting beautiful federal civic architecture. That's what he was doing. People are dying, and this guy is getting into exterior design. It could have been a mask order, but why save lives when you can do nothing? The order says, quote, classical architecture shall be the preferred and default architecture for federal public buildings, absent exceptional factors. People are dying, and Trump is decorating. I mean, I have to wonder, I've been thinking about this more. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the chat. If the majority religion in this country, the one that so many revere and conflate with morality and goodness, if that religion did not revere the deliberate sacrifice of an innocent man and hold it up as this object for veneration, whether we be so cavalier about sacrificing so many innocent people on the altar of a willful ignorance. And as I wonder that, you can draw comparisons with other countries, which I think may answer that. So there's something else going on here, which is, again, why I really focus on Christian nationalism. So I'll tune that, take a break from that. Everybody take a little sip of your libation, calm down from that one, because that was just infuriating. I also did a talk with the Metroplex atheist down in Dallas this past weekend for my day job. And I was told by Charlie, this young activist who helps run the group, she was explaining to me, like, if you buy a advent calendar on sale and start it on the 26th or the 27th, it'll actually take you right up to the inauguration. And they're all going to be on sale, so you might as well go get one. So something to do for you. Take it right up to January 20th. So we did get a few questions on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. If you've got a question, you can go ahead and ask it in the chat now. The distracted lawyer asked, WTF does that even mean? Civic architecture? Yeah, public buildings wants to keep them looking old and ornate. So anyway, buildings come first. That's what Gallifrey Orphan says. Agree. So if you got questions, go ahead and shoot them in the chat. But Tony Lanciano over on my Facebook page asked, when will this nonsense end with Trump and his deranged supporters? And that is a very good question. I don't know. I mean, Biden is going to be president. He's going to take office on January 20th. I don't have any doubt about that. But I don't know that necessarily marks an end of their nonsense. I mean, Trump has already vowed to run again. So who knows? I don't know. It's hard to predict something that is, I mean, I don't think anybody could have predicted where we are now. And you try to extrapolate that out, it seems even harder to me. I think this is a good reason for some sort of Truth and Reconciliation Commission to investigate all the crimes of this administration, to help have a full airing and some closure and put an end to it. So that's my take on that. Let's see. Greetings from Yosemite National Park. Yosemite is one of my favorite places in the whole world, along with the Grand Canyon. Absolutely gorgeous there. So, what What do I think is going on with Barrett on the court? Yeah, I mean, I think Barrett on the court is bad news. I was one of the primary people investigating her. This is going to be a real big problem. There is now the decision before Thanksgiving really signified that there is now a 5-person conservative bloc on the Supreme Court that's willing to push a Christian nationalist agenda, and that is deeply alarming. Will Judy asks, is it true? Hi, Will. Will's on the front lines fighting, so everybody ought to give Will a nice round of applause. He tuned into one of my talks all masked up and geared up and doing his thing. Is it true that Biden federal cannot dictate how states handle this pandemic? To a certain extent, yeah, right. There are limitations on the federal government's power, but it can also do things like regulate interstate commerce, which is actually how it is able to do a lot of the things that it does by tying its actions to that power. So by doing that, they have a much broader reach than you would otherwise suspect from the limited form of government that it was supposed to have. So there are going to be limitations, and there are definitely going to be challenges from, for instance, the crazy attorney general down in Texas who tried to challenge the election, who will challenge whatever health measures there are that Biden does put into place. But they can also do things like mandate all masks on all federal property all across the country. That'd be an easy one. People who are in Yosemite, you're wearing a mask then, you know? You probably already are if you're watching this channel. So anyway, there is still a lot that can be done. And it'll be interesting to see how they decide to do that. But I'm feeling very good about some of the things I've heard so far. Amy Stonebreaker asked over on Facebook, would love to hear your thoughts on Biden and how much you think he'll bend over backwards for Christians in the US. So Biden is old school. So I think he is of the mistaken opinion that appealing to religion in general will unite the country rather than divide us along religious lines. But we know that religion is the most divisive force there is. It's the most divisive force humanity's ever come up with. I won't be standing from any of this nonsense from any administration. Keep state and church separate no matter what your party is. Fighting Christian nationalism is the one true American way in my book. So, if Biden does this stuff, I'm going to be there pushing back on him, just as I was pushing back on Trump. Okay. Oh, we've got people talking about the rule against perpetuity in the Dormant Commerce Clause. I'm not getting anywhere near that. You guys are crazy in this chat. Jason McCoy on Twitter asked a really interesting question, I thought. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the chat too. And I'm going to go back and look after this and get a full airing of it. What single act do you think would best help the secular movement? And then he gave a few examples: taxing churches, removing "In God We Trust" or "Under God" from the pledge's mottos, etc. I really do think this is a good question. And I'm going to answer it slightly in the lawyerly way. So first, a government action that's doable. So that's a little bit of something that I think we could actually get, which is not quite what Jason asked. I think financial disclosures for all churches and religious nonprofits would make a huge difference. I mean, if you read the article I wrote about Joel Osteen and these mega churches abusing PPP funds, buying private jets with PPP funds that I wrote for Religion Dispatches last week, maybe somebody can find it and stick it in the chat for me. I'd appreciate that. You will know that a big reason there's that abuse is because they never have to report any of their finances to the IRS. The first time they're getting this public money, which they never should in the first place, the first time the IRS might be hearing of them or the government might be hearing of them is when they're getting that public money, which I explain in the article. So that's actually doable. I think we could get that done. Now with this court, with Barrett, it may not stand up, so that's a little bit alarming. But that is something I think is doable. And in the day job that I have that you probably know about, I do some of that work. That's one of the goals. So, and then not in terms of not a government action, but any action that is doable. And this we could all do. We could all really help do this. I think the thing that we could do is get people, and especially young progressive activists, to understand that state church separation is almost a silver bullet, right? Like in many ways, the fight for state-church separation is somewhat of a privileged fight. I mean, after all, like, what does it matter if the government has an official religion or is putting religion on coins when people are sick and dying and impoverished and homeless and jobless? Like, when the courts are on the brink of repealing Roe versus Wade, when our schools are just failing and our healthcare is going to be ripped away, what does that matter? What does it matter when our brothers and sisters are being killed in the streets by the police and children are being thrown in cages? What does it matter? What does state-church separation matter? So I actually think it matters more. And this is what I would like to see us do a better job of explaining. Those kids that were thrown in cages, they were thrown in cages because of the Bible, because of Romans 13, because of the White House Bible study where Jeff Sessions learned about that. And whatever issues you care about, limiting the power of religion in our government, ending the Christian nationalist influence on our government will help. It's not quite a panacea, but it really does clear the way for real solutions. So if you want better education, if you want full funding for public schools instead of vouchers for private religious schools, if you want accurate science about evolution and sex taught in our classrooms, do you want full political and civil rights for LGBTQ, for women, for minorities? Do you want reproductive justice and choice to be fully realized? Do you want a greener world and a healthier environment? Do you want America to get serious about global climate change and shun its deniers? Do you want access to better and universal healthcare? Do you want scientific research to be guided by scientists? Hell, do you want to solve the problems in the Middle East? Do you want our responses to deadly pandemics to be guided by science and not wishful thinking? If you end Christian nationalism, end religious encroachments into our government, you will see progress on every one of those issues. So I think to a lot of people, secularism seems like a fight for the few, the lucky, the privileged, but I think this is a fight for all of us. And I really think we need to do a much better job of explaining that. Let me go ahead and get down off my box there. Lady Lilith shared the link for the PPP article if you want to see that. So I hope everybody does that. Anyway, Susan Turpin, hi Susan, said that someone on Twitch tried to tell her that the separation of church and state, either as an idea or as a phrase, is not documented anywhere. Well, that's just silly. What they mean, the argument that they're trying to make is that it's not, those words don't appear verbatim in the Constitution. They can't even get that right. I had that argument today with a right-wing radio host named Mike Essen. We had a debate about the war on Christmas, again, for my day job, which if you want to go check that out, I'm sure it's easily Googleable. Okay, let me see. Any other questions? Oh, lots of agreement. That's good. Do you want to live among smart and educated people? Need a secular government? I mean, again, education, like we are suffering because of it. Yeah, I'm Jesse. Good question on the Social Security tax deferral. I'm not going to get into that. That is a mess. I'm not going to broadcast any advice on that because I don't want to lead anybody astray accidentally. And I know some employers are doing things differently than others. And I believe, Jesse, you might work for the federal government, so it might even be different than most other people. So I don't want to wade into that fight and screw somebody over. So I'm going to avoid that question. I apologize. Easy, that's EASY, asked over on Twitter, have I considered the extent to which Wisconsin versus Yoder demonstrated for the religious right that they can roll liberal secularists? So I'm not going to dive into that case and the various tests here, but I am going to definitely be covering all of that in my new book, Weaponizing Religious Freedom, which is due out in early 2022. So subscribe to this channel, smash that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date. This is where I'm going to be talking mostly about the book there and on my the Buy Me a Coffee page for those who are supporting that work. Looks like Rebecca has a question. She's wanting to write a blog post about why integration of state and church is immoral, even when it is legal. Can you recommend any sources or ideas? Fantastic idea, Rebecca. Yeah, I mean, it's a fundamentally unequal proposition. I would go back to the original expert on this, and one of one of the documents that we know did a fantastic job of communicating why state church separation is so important, because it changed like a ton of people's minds. And that was James Madison. He wrote the Memorial and Remonstrance Against Religious Assessments. Guys, if you haven't read it, go read it. This was 1785, I believe it was published. Might have been 1786. Basically, there's a fight going on about a bill that would have taxed citizens and then turned around and given that money to Christian teachers, which was another word for preachers back then. So religious assessments. They're assessing you and taking your money and turning around and giving it to preachers. And James Madison writes this memorial and remonstrance against it to convince the public, the people, the legislature, why it's a terrible, terrible idea. And he goes, basically comes up with 16 points. And a bunch of them are religious, right? He's writing to people who are religious. So he's going to give them reasons, like it degrades your religion to have it be, it's an unhallowed perversion of the means of salvation to use religion to drive public policy, he says. So I would go back and look at that. I also think that it's fundamentally unequal. And I think inequality, there's a good tie for immorality there. So that'd be a recommendation there. Okay. Jesse is apparently watching the Browns beat up on the Steelers. So she'll like to know that I grew up a Ravens fan. They were always better than the Browns and remain so to this day. Okay. Does anybody have any final? Oh, looks like Distracted Lawyer posted the memorial and remonstrance. Thank you very much. So let's see. Anybody else? Okay. Yeah. So best name ever is saying, hey, you. Yes, you. And she's talking to you. Yes, you. Remember to subscribe and like and enable the notifications. She's better at this than I am. Listen to her. Thank you. Okay. I think we're getting on about 30 minutes there, guys. So happy winter solstice. You know, this is the celebration of solstice. It's about light in the dark of winter. I'm going to go Dumbledore again, okay? I'm going to go Dumbledore to wrap it up, right? This is about light in the dark of winter, about life, living on when all seems dead. So it's about rebirths and about bright futures. And I believe we all have a brighter future ahead. I really do. Next year will be better, even if it's going to get worse at first. So, here's to the solstice and to a bright future. Salud. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Proud Progressive. And speaking just of going dark, I'm going to go a bit dark over the next week or maybe 2 weeks to recharge. Taking time off work. In the meantime, you can go check out a few of the other videos I got on this channel. My first ever live TV interview was with Bill O'Reilly. That was my first live television interview, and that's on the channel. You can go see it. Actually, if you're interested, I could, next time we do one of these libations and conversations, I could kind of do like a behind the scenes chat about how that came about and how I prepared for it and what it was like, because it was super weird. So if you're interested in that, just let me know in the comments and I'll read through them and we'll figure something out. There's also some videos of my behind the scenes tours when I went to the Ark Park, Ken Ham's Ark Park. I shot a commercial there. That led to a whole weird series of events in my life, including somebody under the pen name, not me, somebody under the pen name Justin Beavers wrote erotica about Ken Ham and myself called Ken Ham and the Seidel Man. There's a video of why I'm an atheist in 60 seconds on here. So as my friend in the comments, best name ever, was saying, smash that subscribe button, turn on the notifications so you don't miss these live videos. And thanks everyone. I know a bunch of you have been supporting my early morning writing habit on the Buy Me a Coffee page. I really, truly, deeply appreciate that. Today was day 30 in a row of getting up at 5 a.m. and writing this new book. So if you want to chip in and help fuel that habit and buy me a coffee, help me get this new book written and in the hands of Americans who need these tools and these arguments to fight back against religious bullies, you can help me out at buymeacoffee.com/Andrew L. Seidel. I think there's a link somewhere on this YouTube page. Andrew L. Seidel is also where I am on all the social media platforms. So if you got additional questions, you can try to reach out to me over there before I go dark. There's also still time to get a copy of The Founding Myth for your friends and family members on either side of that debate. And if you liked it, please leave a review on Amazon or Goodreads or both. And I will see you in the new year for another libation and conversation. And, let me know in the chat what you want to discuss. You want to hear about Bill O'Reilly, whatever it is. And until then, remember to question everything and remember that there is no freedom of religion without a government that is free from religion. That's my favorite saying. Okay. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. More soon. Bye-bye.